Okay, you need to watch this whole video. I will personally check when you hand it to me whether it was watched, because otherwise I get people, well, it's boring, and it is. It's a long, boring video. And we want our GCF calculator, because right here is what we ought to know. Okay, and we have this sheet to kind of guide us in this class. So when I have to solve an equation now, I want to know how many answers it has. Well, whatever power the x is to, the highest power is how many answers, so 2. Now, I want a little box up here. It's telling what you have for x's. I have x to the second power, and I've got x. So if I have x to the second and x, I need to see that we have equals 0, which we do. And now I count the terms. There's 1, 2. So 2 is the GCF and the DOPS. Again, if you want to survive this standard, you got to know how to read this little flow graphic organizer I made. So 3 things on a GCF. Negative in front, there it is. You got x on both, yep. If you punch in 3 and 30 into the GCF calculator, you're going to get 3. Here, I'll do it just to show you. I got 3. Okay, so negative 3x. Don't be lazy. Go up here and divide. So that's positive 1. That's x. And cross those out. Now that's negative 30 divided by negative 3, which is positive 10. So I write plus 10. Well, DOPS, these two terms, I don't even have a minus sign. So I know it's not, okay? So this has an x, so that gets an F label, and that gets an F label. So negative 3x equals 0, and 1x plus 10 equals 0. Box up your x's, and then divide to find the first answer. That's 0. And then subtract 10 from both sides, and that's negative 10. Okay, your next problem. How many answers? Well, the x is to the second power, so that makes 2. What do we have for x's? Well, we got x to the second power, and unfortunately, we have x to the first. I say unfortunately because if you only have 1, it's a lot easier. So we got to make sure it equals 0, which it does. And then how many terms? There's 3, okay? So 3 is the GCF T chart. So the GCF, do I have a 1 in front? Nope. Do I have x and everything? Nope. If I go 1, 7, and 60, it's just going to spit out 1. So whenever 1's one of the numbers you punch in, it's going to be 1. A times C, positive 1 times negative 60. That gives me a negative product of 60, so I'm looking for a difference that would equal out to 7. 60 minus 1 is not 7. 30 minus 2 is not 7. 20 minus 3 is not 7. 15 minus 4 is not 7, but you're getting closer. It's 11. 12 minus 5 is 7. We got it, okay? Now the 7 up there is plus, so you have plus 12 automatically. Now for the other sign, you see if you did a difference or a sum. This was a difference, so they can't match. They're opposite. Okay, and A equals 1x squared, which I know to be just x times x, so I just need 2 parentheses. X times x would have been 1x squared, and then the minus 5 and the plus 12. Okay, there's no GCF. That's F1, that's F2. So x minus 5 can equal 0, or x plus 12 can equal 0. So box up your x's, and I plus 5, I get 5. minus 12, I come up with negative 12. I don't need to divide by 1, so that is the answer. Okay, and my next problem, how many answers? There are 2. Okay, and what do I have for x's? I've got x to the second power, and I've got x to the first. So we got to follow this path. We have our 0. How many terms? There's 3 here. So I would make my greatest common factor box and my box for the T-chart test. GCF, do I have a negative in front? No. Do I have X on everything? No. 329 and 44. I got a 1, okay? So having a GCF of 1 means you can't change it. Now, A, B, and C. A times C, A is 4, or 3, sorry. C is negative 44. Okay, 3 times negative 44 is kind of a crappy one. Okay, it's negative 132. So negative would be a difference of 29. Now, you can't be a wuss here. You got to go 132. No, that doesn't subtract to 29. 2 and 61. No, that does not subtract to 29. 132 divided by 3. That's 44. 44 minus 3 is not 29. 4 and 33. What's 33 minus 4? It's 29, so I got it. Okay, the 29 was plus, so 33 is plus for sure. And this was a difference, so the signs will be the opposite. And my A was equal to 3x squared. Okay, so that's not a 1x squared, so we need 4 parentheses. Okay, so I need to go 3x and 3x, and then minus 4 and plus 33. Now the GCF of 3 and 4 is 1, so that will just stay the same. The GCF of 3 and 33 is 3. That means divide both of the numbers by 3. So 1x plus 11. I look up, there was no GCF, so nothing to put here. So that's F1, F2. Okay, so 3x minus 4 equals 0. 1x plus 11 equals 0. 3 times x equals 4. 4 divided by 3 is 1.3 repeating. Okay? And then I minus 11. 0 minus 11 is negative 11. Don't need to divide by 1, so there we have it. Okay, this one, how many answers? Well, here's my x. It's to the second power. And what for x's it says? We have x to the second only. Okay? If I have x only or x to the second only, we will be collecting our x's. So that means box it up. There's only one box, so they're collected. Isolate your x, so I need to add 9. So 4x to the second power equals 9. And then we'll need to divide by the 4. And then x to the second. Now this is 2.25. If x is to the second power, to find x itself, I just find the square root of 2.25. That's 1.5. Now, this does have 2 answers because it's positive or negative. Okay? Remember that. So it's nice when we only have one of the others. Okay? My next problem, the x is to the second. There are 2 answers. Okay, what do we have for x's in the whole problem? I have an x to the second, and I have an x to the first. So unfortunately, we have to go with this route. Equals 0. Oh, I don't have 0. Well, I got some fixing to do. Plus 4x, and that doesn't go with anything. It can't go with x to the second. It can't go with 4, so I put that right here. Minus 8. This can be a nasty little problem if you don't set it up right. And that can go under the positive 4. Now, when I write this, the 3x squared comes first, and then the x comes next. So plus 4x. And then positive 4 minus 8. That's negative 4. All right. Now I have my 0. Now I count my terms. There are 3. Okay? So GCF T. So GCF, negative in front, no. You got X on everything, no. Okay. If you enter 3, 4, and 4 in, it's going to give you a GCF of 1. Okay. So I take A times C, 3 times negative 4. And that gives me a negative product 12. So difference of the B, which is 4. 1 and 12, not 4. 2 and 6, yeah, it is 4. So the 4 is plus, so we got plus 6. And difference is the opposite, minus 2. Negative 2 plus 6 is positive 4. Okay, so A equals 3x to the second power. So it's not a 1, you need 4. So 3x, minus 2 plus 6. Okay, on the GCF calculator, 3 and 2 gives you 1, so that will just remain the same. 3 and 6. That is going to give you 3. Okay, you should probably know that, but whatever. Okay, so I divide by 3. That's 1x plus 2. There was no GCF to bring down, so this is factor 1, this is factor 2. Okay, so 3x minus 2 equals 0, or 1x plus 2 equals 0. Plus 2, 3x equals 2. Then I divide by 3. 2 divided by 3 is 0.6 repeating, okay? And then I minus 2, and 1x equals negative 2. Okay, now, how many answers? Well, this time there are 3, because the x is to the power of 3 is the highest, okay? So there's going to be an F1, an F2, and an F3. So I have x to the third, I have x to the second, and I've got x. So obviously I don't have only 1. I need to take this pathway. The 0's there. Count the terms. There's 3. So you know that that is GCFT. So GCF, do we have a negative in the front? No. Do we have X on everything? Yes, we do. Okay. And then 3, 30, and 33, I get 3. Okay. So 3X is the GCF. That factors out. Okay, we are dividing by x, so these will cross out. Now these are going to stay, but they're going to go down 1, both of them, because you're dividing by x. So that's 3 divided by 3 is 1. That would go down to x to the second. 30 divided by 3 is 10, and that would go down to x minus 11. Okay. Now the A, B, and C. So I take A times C. 1 times negative 11 gives me a negative 11 product. By the way, you don't worry about this till you're down at the end, okay? That's out. These are the ones we're worried about. Okay, 1 and 11 So difference of 10, 1 and 11. Okay, so we got plus 10, so you got to put plus 11, and difference would be that. Now, some of you people, some of you goobers, you don't put this. A is right here. There's the x squared. There's a 1 in front of it, so that's just x times x, okay? So only 2 parentheses are needed. I didn't mean to sound mean. I'm just kind of joking. Minus 1 plus 11. Now, we had a GCF of 3x. Now, since that has an x, I need to put it in parentheses, and that's F1, that's F2, that's F3. So F1, 3x can equal 0. X minus 1 could equal 0. X plus 11 could equal 0. So I box my x's, all of them. Divide by 3 here, and that's 0. Plus 1, that's 1. You don't need to divide by 1. Negative 11. Okay, next problem. X is to the third. There are 3 answers. And what do I have for x's? I have x to the third power and then x to the first. So we're going to have to follow this route. So the 0's there. Sure is. Count the terms. This has just 2. So it's the GCF. And then I look for a difference of perfect squares. Okay, so the GCF here. Do I have a negative in front? Nope, but I do have x on both of them. 1 and 21, the GCF is 1. But, so I'll put 1. But if it's 1x, we got to actually bring it out. So I divide by 1x and 1x. Now, these cross out, and you want to be careful here. 1 divided by 1 is 1. X to the third divided by x becomes x to the second, not just x. That's a second power that would become x. Minus 121. Now we see if we can do a difference of perfect squares. So see these two? There's a difference because it says minus. Now 111's up on the board because I look up there, there's 121, and it's 11 times 11. 1's on the board, that's 1 times 1, and x to the second's x times x, so you bet. So I fill this out, 1x, 11, and 11. And the GCF here is brought down, and it gets its parentheses because it has x. So F1, F2, F3. So F1 would be 1x, equal that to 0. 1x plus 11 equal that to 0. And 1x minus 11. So I box up the x's, divide by 1, that's 0. 0 minus 11 is negative 11, divide by 1 is negative 11. That's 11, divided by 1 is 11. Okay, next problem. Okay, there are 3 answers, and I've got x to the third, I have x to the second, I have x, so I'm going to need to have my 0, but this time there's 4, okay, so I'm going this route, okay, but 4 terms means I set up the big grouping box, so that requires quite a bit of space, okay. And then a second box for the, and then, by the way, grouping, I just write it up top, parentheses plus parentheses, like you see there, and then the same thing with lines outside, and then just 1 parentheses with a line outside. Okay, and then my DOPS is set up with 2 parentheses, 1 plus, 1 minus. Okay, so grouping, I've got 1x to the third minus 11x to the second, and then negative 9x. Remember, if that's minus there, you got to put that in as negative, plus 99. So now I'm looking for GCFs with just 2 at a time instead of the whole thing. So this doesn't have a negative in front. It does have x, and you need to take the second power x. Then 1 and 11 is 1, okay? So I'm not even going to put that there. Okay, now you do have a negative in front. You don't have x on both. And 9 and 99 have a GCF of 9, okay? Okay, so x to the second is what I'm dividing by. That pulls out negative 9. Pull that out. And I'm hoping these end up the same. Now, the 1 isn't being divided, so it's 1, and we cross those out. X third divided by x second takes you to x, and then minus 11. And that's going to be the same darn thing, okay? So, what do you have in each parentheses? 1x minus 11, so I put that out there. Cross those out, and we're left with x to the second and negative 9. Okay, let's put a parentheses around that. Now, one of these is adopts. Okay, you have minus here, but 11's not on the board, so circle that, and that's your F1. Minus is here, and that's 3 times 3, and that's x times x. Okay, so x, 3, 3, and that's F2, and that's F3. Okay, so 1x minus 11. And then x plus 3 and x minus 3. Plus 11, that's 11. Minus 3, that's negative 3. Plus 3, that's positive 3. Okay, now some story problems. You throw a ball into the air with an initial velocity of 46 feet per second. The ball leaves your hand when it's 6 feet above the ground. After how many seconds does a ball land on the ground? So I'm finding the seconds. And I have feet and seconds as my units, okay? So feet and seconds. Now x is defined by seconds, y by feet. X is always the time unit. The feet per second is 46. Okay. And it lands on the ground. Okay, so I draw a big box, and gravity is what's pulling the ball towards the ground. So negative 16x squared. It's negative, not just 16. Plus your 46x. And then I also see a 6 there. That's because it started at 6 equals y. Okay, so 0 feet becomes y. So I have x left. It's to the second power. Okay, and what do I have? I have x to the second with x, so I'm going to need to factor. So I make sure I have my zeros. There it is. Count the terms. There's 3. So GCF and the T table. GCF, do I have a negative in front? Yes. Do I have X on everything? No, I don't. 6 doesn't. And then I punch in 16, comma 46, comma 6, and the GCF is 2. Okay, so negative 2, but not with X. So okay, so that's positive 8 with x to the second. That's negative 23, so put minus 23 with x, and then negative 3. Don't try to avoid putting that and that as plus negative because you get screwed up on the signs. Okay, so A times C, positive 8 times negative 3. It's going to give me negative 24, so difference of 23. And by gosh, that's 1 and 24. Got it. So 23 is minus, so 24 is that one's minus. And then difference means the signs aren't the same. They're the opposite, so plus. Okay, now A, go find your x squared, and it's 8. Okay, so obviously you need 4. So 8x, 8x, and then plus 1 minus 24. Now that has a GCF of 1. And 8 and 24 has a GCF of 8. I'm going to prove it to you. Okay, and I got 8. So divide by 8, divide by 8, and that's 1x minus 3. Now the GCF's negative 2, but it doesn't get an F because it's not negative 2x, just negative 2. So F1, F2. So 8x plus 1 equals 0. 1x minus 3 equals 0. So I minus 1. 8x equals negative 1 divided by 8. That's negative 0.125. And then plus 3, that's 3. So 3 is the answer. Okay, next. On the shaded regions area, so this is the 7 times question mark. Okay, question mark. Okay, so with that being said, let's split the problem into 2. Okay, so put an X right there. So let's make a length width parentheses, and I want the it of the white part, so that's 1x plus 2 and 1x. So to multiply that, that's a 1 and a 2. So 1x times 1x, both to the first. And then that's done, and then 2 times 1x. That's to the 1. So that's 1x to the second and 2x to the 1. Okay, check that off, and I've got 1x to the second plus 2x. Now I make an equals. Now the area is equal to 80. And I just drop 1x to the second plus 2x down. Okay, so there's 2 answers. I've got x squared next to first, so I need to go this path, but I don't have my 0. 80 can't be there. You need to subtract it. So 1x to the second plus 2x minus 80. Equals 0. And now I count my terms. So there's 3, so that would be the GCF and the T-chart. Okay. GCF, negative in front, no. You got X on everything, no. Okay. 1, 2, and 80 is 1, so out of here. So A times C, 1 times negative 80. Well, that's negative 80, so difference of 2. Nope, I'm kind of running short on time here. So 80 divided by 8 is 10, and 10 minus 8 is 2. Okay, so the 2's plus. Difference, they won't be the same. Didn't have any sums on this. A, go find your x squared, it's 1. Okay, so that's just x times x right away. Okay, so x minus 8 plus 10. There was no GCF. Okay, so x minus 8 is 0. X plus 10 is 0. Plus 8, that's 8. Minus 10, that's negative 10. Now, you take the positive answer up here, and 7 times 8 is 56. The reason I want to do the positive, not the negative, because I don't get a negative area. That makes no sense. Okay, then finally, a missile shot close to the ground with a velocity of 128 feet per second. After how many seconds does it hit its ground target? Okay, so seconds and feet again. X is defined by feet, Y is per feet per second. Feet per second's 128. Now what's a missile going to do? It's going to come up, come back down to 0 feet. Now it's a parabola, so we need a nice big box. Gravity. Negative 16x to the second plus the 128x. There's really nothing else here, so I just put equal to y, and I know y is 0. So I have two answers. And in the equation, we got x to the second along with x. So that's this path. And the zero's there. And now I count the terms. There's only two of them. So I would look for a GCF. And then I would see if the result is a difference of perfect squares. Okay, now do I have a negative in front? Yes. I have x on both. And then we're going to have to GCF calculator the 16 and the 128. It gives me 16, okay? So negative 16x gets factored out. We cross out the x's there, so that's positive 1. And that is x. And 28 divided by negative 16, 128, is negative 8. So I put minus 8. Now you got a minus, but 8 is not a perfect square. No, it's not 4 times 4. That would be 16. Doesn't have one. Okay. So that says an x, so we F label that and F label that. So negative 16x equals 0. 1x minus 8 is 0. So I get 0 and 8. 8's the answer. Okay. Hopefully that clarifies what you're expected to know here.